Tank, I know you love your totals. Are you taking the over 48.5 with this one? Or because maybe the Bengals O-line's banged up a little bit, Joe Burrow's going to be under a lot more pressure with 3 of his O-line starters out, it goes under. How do you feel about the total?
Yeah, I just wanted to scan real quick. And yeah, it's true. I thought it was the case. This will be the first time that Joe Burrow and Josh Allen actually like link up because I don't even know if we can count that last game since it ended like so abruptly, like early on in the game.
Didn't count.
And
None of the
so
stats
that
counted. Didn't
right. And
exist.
so yeah, so that's the reason this game, I mean, that game was already so highly anticipated because going into that game, the Bengals and the Buffalo Bills were playing some of the best ball in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
These two quarterbacks had never faced each other, and we are like, okay, what's going to happen? And we get the pump fake. I mean, obviously, we already talked about, Damar Hamlin and that whole storyline, and great to see that he's back in Buffalo healthy and everything else. But now we want to just focus between the white lines, like everything that we had built up into that game, and now all of a sudden we just press reset, but now it stays in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is going to be a crazy environment, and you wonder if some of the trends that we saw early on in that game before was canceled get to pick up because honestly, that Buffalo defense had zero answers for the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Like Joe Burrow was doing
Mm-hmm.
whatever the hell he wanted to early on in that game,
Yeah.
but like what's happened since that game? I can't remember exactly when Leo Collins got hurt, but like these dudes,
It
they've
was
lost like
before then.
Leo Collins before them, so he was already gone. But
Yeah,
then they lost
he was
Kappa,
already out.
and now Jonah Williams is going to be
Mm-hmm.
out too. And it seems like, I mean, we were talking about like, okay, we can see the Cincinnati Bengals getting by the Ravens with that beat up offensive line, and that was before Jonah Williams got hurt. But we said that the injuries in the offensive line were going to eventually catch up. Will it be
Yeah.
this week against the Buffalo Bills? But I also get paused just talking about injuries alone because we saw what the Miami Dolphins were able to do with a bunch of injuries against the Buffalo Bills. So I'm like, am I overreacting to that? And then when you go to the flip side, you have the Buffalo Bills where it's like, what is really going on with Josh Allen? Like these turnovers, and not all of them are his fault. I mean, but they could just continue to happen. And it's one of those things where is this why we saw the tick down in the total where now we're at 48? Because when you look at the way that game started, you expect to have a lot of points in this one, but maybe Vegas is looking at,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Cincinnati Bengals have all these injuries along the offensive line. Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, they haven't been able to protect the ball. And so because of those two factors, maybe that's why we're going to lean to the under. But if Josh Allen is able to resolve those turnover issues and then they get a little bit more efficient on offense, and then the Cincinnati Bengals offense or find a way to kind of mitigate those injuries along the offensive line and do what I expect them to do is have the quick passing game, run to the strong side of the offensive line if there is one, but then also just get the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands quick and try to take advantage of that Buffalo defense. Then we could potentially see some points. So I'm interested to see what Jared says. But now that the total is ticked down to 48, is this an opportunity now where you try to get in and maybe
Mm-hmm.
try to get some exposure to the over? Or do you wait for it to try to get a little bit lower and then take advantage of that? Because ultimately, I feel like both of these offenses, they can catch fire. And I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. And I feel like going to the under could potentially be the
Mm-hmm.
wrong side of the total.
Jared, you talked about how games are won in the trenches, right? They're missing. I mean, we already talked about Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, and now Jonah Williams goes out with a dislocated knee. I looked at last year's stats. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times in the divisional round last year. This season, when Joe Burrow is sacked 5 or more times, the Bengals are 0-3. When he's sacked fewer than 5 times, they're 13-1. So it's going to be important for him to be protected for them to win this game. But again, who knows what that O-line is going to look like at this point and how much pressure Joe Burrow is going to be under. You think he can handle the heat?
Yeah, if anyone can handle it, it's Joe Cool, right? If anyone can handle the heat.
Seriously, that's true. Is that even a question? Sorry.
And
Don't
this
even
is
know why that
coming
slipped
from
out of
the
my
person
mouth.
that last year tanked during the run. She bought the, what was it, Versace glasses? What were the glasses?
Oh, yeah, but they were the fake Amazon ones, the Cartier glasses, and then I bought a
Fake
sweatshirt
Cartiers.
with Joe's eyes. It's just his eyes with the sunglasses on. It says Joe Burr.
The Fartier glasses.
I'll be wearing it on Sunday.
It was Elber.
Yep.
Elber.
I know. I said JB and LJB. You know what I mean? Joe Burrow and Lauren
I
Miller.
mean, it was
El
you were all
Jabbar.
about it last year. We did the Super Bowl show together in LA, and she was all about Joe Burrow
Yeah.
last year. I thought they were going to win that game. That was one of the more epic Super Bowls, not only because Lauren and I were both in attendance, but just the game itself was
So
fascinating,
fun.
and we'll see if Joe can replicate that. So yeah, let's dive into some of the topics you guys kind of touched on here, because I think there's some interesting data points surrounding all of it that make this a very
Mm-hmm.
fascinating handicap. I was surprised, Tang. I agree. I was surprised the total dropped the way that it did. It opened right around 50. And I even wrote it up on my early birds column Sunday night. I was like, both defenses didn't look great. I could see this maybe going up. But I think the offensive line injuries kind of skewed it in the other direction, and maybe it is Cincinnati. So this is what the Bengals offensive line looks like. So Jonah Williams got hurt, left tackle. La'el Collins was already hurt, right tackle. So both bookend tackles are both out. The guy that came in to replace Jonah Williams on Sunday, left guard Jackson Carman. He's a backup left guard, had never played tackle before. Didn't grade out well. Surprise, surprise. The right guard, Alex Kappa, also didn't play against the Ravens. He was hurt a week or two ago. His backup, Max Sharping, had the lowest run blocking grade of any guard that played the entire weekend. all the teams of Wild Card Weekend. So there are some glaring holes on that offensive line. Now, the one caveat here is the Ravens' defensive front, I think, is light years, maybe not light years, but I would say ahead of where the Bills' pass rush is without Von Miller. I think without Von Miller, and remember, Lauren, I said this to you the moment he got hurt and was out for the year. I said the Bills just got removed from my Super Bowl contender list because I thought, I don't see them being able to replicate what the Rams did last year, which was Leonard Floyd and Von Miller just wreaking havoc without Miller. And it's kind of proven true. I think Matt Milano has changed my vibe a little bit on Buffalo. He was really good on Sunday. 4 pressures, 2 sacks. I don't think he's as good as Von Miller, but I think he can at least give you some pressure off the edge, and he's going to be a guy to keep a very close eye on this week. You had 6 other players on Sunday with multiple pressures: Edmonds, Johnson, Basham, Gregory Russo's. He's the one star, and Jones and Oliver kind of role players. Oliver obviously more of a run stopper. But the one thing that I think negates this is Joe Burrow's ability to adjust. And you mentioned the stat, Lauren, when he doesn't take sacks, the Bengals win. And the reason why he hasn't taken as many sacks this year is because he's got the second shortest time to throw of any quarterback in the league behind Tom Brady. And it's not a very big gap between Brady and Burrow. I mean, they're basically 1A, 1B in terms of getting the ball and getting it out fast. So I do think the Bengals offense is still going to be relatively productive. Now, the one issue is they might not be able to run it because the Bills are fantastic against the run. I just mentioned Ed Oliver. And so if you take that element away and you turn Burrow into a one-dimensional quarterback with not a lot of time to throw, can't push the ball down the field, I understand why this total dropped. And I think the total is probably fair right now where it's sitting underneath that number of 49. The Josh Allen factor is another part that Tank mentioned that I have no explanation for. 7 big-time throws, season high, 7 big-time throws against the Dolphins, slinging it all over the yard. 3rd most turnover-worthy plays in any game this year with 3. So he's throwing it, and the upside's really good, but there's a lot of downside, too, with what we've seen with Josh Allen. That being said, though, I think this Bengals defense is not playing as well as they can. So we'll see if we get an uptick in production from them. I mean, they let Tyler Huntley 52% success rate on dropbacks. And that's a problem. You know, Eli Apple got toasted up, got targeted 5 times, gave up the touchdown to DeMarcus Robinson. You put Stephon Diggs on Eli Apple, and I think that's bad news bears for the Bengals. So I think there's a lot of elements to this game that are intriguing. I don't fully trust Josh Allen to play turnover worthy or turnover free. And how about this stat from our pal Clef T? I'll close with this. The Bengals have gone 21 straight games without losing by more than a field goal when Jamar Chase is in the lineup. So maybe he's the X factor that keeps all things equal. Yeah. So I would say this is a good game, good spot to keep it close, but I don't think I have a pick on a side or a total here.